Hello, and welcome to quarterly content training for Science Grade 7 Honors and Grade 8 Quarter 4. Please take a moment to scan the QR code that will give you access to the participant guide with all of the links for today's session. Feel free to pause the video if needed. For today's session, we will take a look at tiered resources in science. We'll look at ACP and STAR assessment data and go over how the standards were assessed. We will also preview the Quarter 4 content and look at the Quarter 4 lab investigations. We will discuss the importance and use of LO and SEs. And finally, we will provide some Proclamation 2024 updates and information on PD opportunities. As always, we would like to start with our learning objective. Our learning objective for this session states, I am learning about Quarter 4 Grade 8 Science Curriculum. Success Criteria 1 states, I can identify tiered curriculum resources in science. Success Criteria 2 states, I can identify low-performing Grade 8 Science SEs from the fall ACP. Success Criteria 3 states, I can describe opportunities to spiral in low-performing Grade 8 Science SEs into Quarter 4 instruction. Success Criteria 4 states, I can identify instructional strategies to address misconceptions on low-performing Grade 8 Science SEs from the 2023 STAR. Let's dive in and take a look at tiered curricular resources. Tier 1 resources are scientifically researched and evidence-based to provide standards-aligned, on-grade level instruction. Tier 2 resources are recommended to provide targeted skill support for small groups of students who are unsuccessful with Tier 1 instruction. Tier 3 resources are supported, highly targeted, intensive interventions and instruction. These resources are intended for students performing significantly below grade level, typically 5% of the student population. The middle school science curricular resources for Tier 1 instruction is HMH Texas Science Fusion. Tier 2 resources include HMH Texas Science Fusion graphic organizers and interactive readers, as well as Discovery Education Science Interactives and BrainPop Science. Tier 3 resources include PhET Simulations for Science, BrainPop Science, and iReady. You can find a link for PhET Simulations in your participant guide. All other resources are accessible through Clever. Looking back at our LO and SEs, we just covered the first SE. I can identify tiered curriculum resources in science. Now, let's review the 2023 Fall Grade 8 ACP data as well as the STAR 2023 data to identify the low-performing SEs. We see that for the fall ACP, 55% of students in the district passed the assessment. About 26% of students were at the MEETS level, and 6% of students were at the master's level. In your participant guide, you have a link to a spreadsheet titled Fall 2023 Grade 8 Science ACP Data. Please feel free to pause the video to review the data. We see the 5 lowest SEs identified on the Grade 8 Science ACP being 8.5A, 8.9B, 8.9C, 8.10A, and 8.10B. Please take a moment to review these SEs and consider what misconceptions students may have and what opportunities you have to spiral in these standards during Quarter 4. Please note within your participant guide, there is a link to a document titled Grade 8 STAR and Fall ACP Data Analysis that provides suggested possible next steps and opportunities to spiral in these low-performing standards. Looking back at our LO and SEs, we just covered the next two SEs. I can identify low-performing grade 8 science SEs from the fall ACP, and I can determine opportunities to spiral in low-performing grade 8 science SEs into quarter 4 instruction. Let's now take a moment to review the 2023 STAR data to identify the low-performing SEs. In your participant guide, you have a link to a spreadsheet titled 2023 STAR data. Please feel free to pause the video to review the spreadsheet. Within the spreadsheet, we see some data points that show the TEKS that have the largest deficits of 6 points or more between the district and the state. We see that there are 7 supporting standards. Let's take a moment to look at how some of these standards were assessed. As we go through these questions, take a moment to think about what makes the question challenging. What do students need to know for this question? And what are some misconceptions? Please take a minute to read the question, which addresses supporting standard 7.12d. 15% of students within the district received full credit for this question. We see that this is a drag and drop question. Students not only need to distinguish between plant and animal cells, but they will also need to identify the cell organelles and their functions. The next question addresses standard 8.6c. Please take a minute to read the question. 10% of students in the district received full credit for this question. Take a look at the item-specific rubric for this question. Now, let's look at some of the sample student responses. Based on the rubric, how would you score each response? Please feel free to pause the video if needed. Student response A received a score of 1. Student response B received a score of 2. And student response C received a score of 0. Take a minute to consider what differentiates a 0-point response from a 1-point response and a 1-point response from a 2-point response. For students to receive the full 2 points for this question, they not only need to identify the forces that affect the block's motion, but they also have to describe the effects of each motion. It's really important to incorporate some more writing opportunities for students in the classroom and to ensure students are justifying their answers, both orally and in writing, using academic vocabulary in their answers. In your participant guide, there is a link to a document titled Grade 8 Science SER Examples. This includes 2 additional SER examples with rubrics and sample student responses. Looking back at our LO and SEs, we have now covered the 4th SE. I can identify instructional strategies to address misconceptions on low-performing Grade 8 Science SEs from the 2023 STAR. Please note that the Quarter 3 Spring Combined End-of-Unit Assessment window is March 4th through 8th. The assessments can be found in the Week 9 Quarter 3 IPCs, which are linked in your participant guide. These assessments include multiple choice questions, as well as short constructed response questions and drag and drop questions. The simulation assessment, which is located in DAN, has a testing window of February 26th through March 8th. Please note that the scoring of SERs must be completed and input into DAN before March 14th. Lastly, the Grade 8 Science STAR window begins the week of April 16th. Now, let's take a look at the content that will be covered during Quarter 4. Quarter 4 will focus on the scientific investigation and reasoning process skills. Please remember that TEA requires that at least 40% of instructional time is dedicated to conducting lab and field investigations. Within our curriculum documents, you will be able to find lab investigations for every lesson cycle. For quarter 4, students will be performing a lab investigation, a STEM challenge in which they design, build, and test a storage container for viruses. The supporting documents for this challenge can be found within the guided lessons. Please remember that if you are a new teacher or if you've moved grade bands, you must complete the Lab Safety online training module. This is an asynchronous training that can be found in Cornerstone and is also linked within your participant guide. As we are wrapping up, I want to highlight the importance of learning objectives and success criteria, which really communicates the point of the lesson to students. Students can refer back to the LO and SEs during the lesson to make connections with prior learning. It's important for the LO and SEs to be in large font and visible to students and to revisit the LO and SEs multiple times during the lesson. Students can constantly connect what they are doing in class with why they are learning it. Dallas ISD has now completed the open viewing period of the instructional resource selection process, which was held from January 9th to January 31st. Teachers were given the opportunity to vote on the resource they would like to use in their classroom, and the District Technology Instructional Material Allotment Team is now in the process of preparing to present a report to the Dallas ISD School Board. The adopted materials will be implemented in science classrooms starting with the 24-25 school year. If you have any questions about the proclamation process, please contact Jeremy Harden. His contact information is listed in the participant guide. There are several upcoming opportunities to note. The UT Southwestern STARS program has opportunities for both teachers and students, including a summer research camp and a summer science camp. Please refer to the link in your participant guide for more information, including how to sign up. Please note that the application deadline is April 1st. BrainPop Science is also hosting an interactive workshop for Dallas ISD educators on March 19th at 4:00 p.m. The BrainPop Science team dive into the phenomena, student interactive tools, and the CER process. The registration link can be found in your participant guide. And finally, in our time together today, I do want to remind you that we have office hours. For middle school science, it is every Wednesday morning from 7:30 to 8:30 a.m. These are informal come and go times for teachers to pop in and receive additional curriculum support. Thank you for joining us today for the quarterly content training for science grade 7 honors and grade 8 quarter 4. Have a wonderful day.